Welcome to the ProThoughts webinar once again. Thanks for joining today again in this uh, webinar that we're going to talk about, which is something different altogether today. Okay, so uh, most of you probably would know me, those who are joining for the first time. First of all, before I start with the topic, let me introduce. This is about me. Now part of ProThoughts team. And those who have not seen me before or heard me before, I doubt though. Uh, I have about 26 years of industry experience, and my name is Saurabh Parikh, of course. I've worked with various, MNC and global corporations in the past, and of course, am the passionate project professional. Apart from, being a project professional, I always have a flair to talk about the project management and try to explore more details about project management in terms of the various domains and various sectors. I'm also doing my research on the project management field, so that's about me. Uh, as a part of the today's agenda, okay, what we're going to cover is this. But before that, let me quickly introduce what is ProThoughts to you. So the ProThoughts world, uh, we are a 6-year-old company. Most of you would know it. Uh, the whole vision of the ProThoughts is something. Think about project management, and you always think about ProThoughts. That's our vision, and the core motto is to get you, the best thing in the project management under one single shop. So we have our e-learning platform. We have various courses that we do, certification courses that we do. For example, we do a PMP certification course, we do Agile certification course, we do MS projects, kind of course. We've also started just recently, it's a portfolio management certification. We also do program management certification. And from August 1, for all of you to know this, from August 1, ProThoughts is starting the Disciplined Agile certification course. Okay, so that's something should be probably interesting to you, those who are the agile folks on this call, on this webinar. Those probably for them it would be very interesting to know that we are starting Disciplined Agile. So I just finished my Disciplined Agile certification just recently. So there are two certificates which I obtained. One is a CDA called Certified Discipline Agilist, and second is the Certified Discipline Lean Scrum Master. Right? Of course, I'm a PMP certified way back in 2007, and that's my journey overall over the last 26 years. So today's topic primarily is very different. It's altogether different. The reason these thoughts came into my mind, uh, most of you would have heard about PMBOK. And even if you are not PMP certified, you would have heard about project management body of knowledge. Some of you might not even have heard about this PMBOK. And some of you might have heard about Disciplined Agile. The Agilist in my webinar today, the Agilist for you guys, this is going to be nothing really, uh, completely, a new invention, but rather I will call it as an innovation in the world of Agile. However, what I'm going to do today through this particular topic, I'm going to spread this awareness of, is it that this Disciplined Agile contradicts PMBOK method, or the PMBOK method would be a part of Disciplined Agile concept as a traditional method or a life cycle of the project management. So that's an interesting corollary, and there are some myths which I'm going to bust out today in front of you. So the way we'll do is, for next 30 minutes, I'll talk. I'll open up a Q&A, and there will be a, there is a question panel. Feel free. In fact, it's front of me. Feel free to put your questions, and I'll be happy to answer like this. By default, you all will be muted, right? If you have any questions, any doubts, please feel free and put your doubts and questions in the question panel that you have. So the agenda for the day. First of all, introduction to PMI. Those who are not aware of what PMI is, I doubt though. And those who are already aware, I'm going to show you some new facts today. And then introduction to PMBOK, of course. Then introduction to Disciplined Agile, what Disciplined Agile is all about. Then we compare them. So the main motto for me today, for today's knowledge driving session, is something which I thought, can I just do a comparison for all of you in terms of PMBOK and Disciplined Agile? Can I just compare the methods, toolkits, values, life cycles, and whatnot? And then combine all of them as if you're trying to digress, right? And then you try to, come back and you try to compress everything together. Okay, so let's try and see this lovely comparison and the world of PMBOK and DA. So I hope you guys are ready with me. So let's take a journey of next 30 minutes on this. I will also talk about a case today of my real life experience on it. Okay, so first of all, what is PMI? A project management institute most of you would have heard about. 1969 started by 5 like-minded people from a construction management background in US. Those people came across together, and after putting a huge amount of hard work of almost 25 years plus, in 1994 they created a first draft of whatever experiences they had learned in 25 years with lots of practicing professionals along with them as volunteers. They built first reference knowledge book, and that we call it as PMBOK, right? So the PMBOK first draft was created, was less than 100 pages. That book was in 1994. In first publication came out in 1996. And since then, over the last 25 years, from 1996 onwards, the PMI hasn't looked back, and they just kept improving the so-called reference book in terms of knowledge areas, process groups, number of processes, inputs, tools, technique, outputs, so on and so forth, right? So the PMBOK is nothing but guidance. It's a guiding principles to the practicing professional project managers in the so-called traditional project life cycle management. When I talk about traditional life cycle, or I call it as a predictive life cycle projects. Typically predictive life cycle projects, meaning it all started with those very definite scope kind of a projects where, for example, you have the construction projects. You are trying to build a hotel brand new. You're trying to build a new factory. You're trying to build a new plant. You're trying to build absolute new offices, or you're trying to take up a a completely new transformation project on a digital transformation. Now, in this game of the traditional world to the adaptive world, I'll use a second word here called adaptive life cycle world. The PMI also learned a lot of things in the bargain over the last 25 years, right? And PMI thought that the stakeholder management is very important and essential for the projects. So they introduced earlier you had a 9 knowledge areas in the PMBOK edition of till 5th edition, and today you're in a 6th edition of PMBOK. And 6th edition, I'm sorry, 4th till 4th edition, you had you didn't have a stakeholder management area. Come 5th edition, and you have a 10th knowledge area introduced called stakeholder management, understanding the importance of the stakeholders there. Similarly, in the 6th edition of PMBOK, right, which is currently in, and 7th is due coming most likely next year, 7th edition promised it. I'm sorry, 6th edition promised that we will introduce the concepts of Agile. And that's where the PMBOK had those 300 pages of the Agile framework. And once the new edition of 7th edition comes in, this 300 pages will really become live. And those who are opting for a PMP examination next year, for them, you might have up to 50% questions in your PMP exam coming directly from Agile. So these are the latest statistics in front of you on the slide, guys. And these statistics come from the perspective of the number of PMI professionals in terms of the certified folks. These are the global numbers which we have today. So PMI has got about 600,000 members in 214 countries and territories. They've got 302 chartered and 8 potential chapters. They work with the chapters and REP model. ProThoughts is a global REP, registered education provider. Now, these are the 8 certifications which PMI has. And the latest certification which they have got is something called Project Management Disciplined Agile. And Disciplined Agile have got various levels of the certification. I achieved the 2nd level. I'm yet to achieve the 3rd one. Right? So this is all about PMI. Now, those who have already seen this kind of a book, this is just for your reference again, guys. This is that reference book of 6th edition that you have in front of you. It's almost like 1,000 pages, out of which 300 pages are related to Agile. So when I talk about the traditional framework versus Agile framework, I always keep talking about the complementary rather than comparison. So, but for you to understand and apprehend more about this, or rather comprehend more about this, you'll have to understand the differences between the two. So I'll take you through the differences first of all. So first of all, PMBOK, as you see the reference framework, has got 10 knowledge areas, right? If you look at here. So these 10 knowledge areas, right, surrounding 5 process groups. Sorry. These process groups create a life cycle of a project, right? Simple example of any, let's say, a construction project, and you are trying to build a new plant. A typical EPC project, right? Engineering, procurement, commissioning. A typical plant, could it be it could be a power plant project. The power plant project, the life cycle goes simple like this. The projects are initiated. That means the chartering process is done. Projects are planned, where the project management plans are created, and each of these 10 knowledge areas will have its own planning component with it. And together they'll create a project management plan. Then they could have you could have execution knowledge process group, where you actually direct and manage your project execution. Then you have a monitoring and control throughout, from initiation to closure. Across the life cycle, you keep monitoring and control, and then you close the project once you have finished the execution. Once you are really happy that whatever was defined as a specification or the scope of work given by your stakeholder, the sponsor or the clients, all been delivered properly. So that construction project and a plant, based on the requirements, it's all come up. The quality has been assured, absolutely. It's been all certified. The deliverables on the project are accepted by the stakeholders. And now it's a time to close the project and move to the next project. So this is how the PMBOK world live with this 1,000 pages. Now, moving on to the new introductory terminology, Disciplined Agile. Now, I'm not sure if you guys were there in my past couple of webinars where I introduced DA. So probably the agenda of this webinar is not to introduce literally DA to you in detail, but those who have missed my sessions on Disciplined Agile, I'm again a passionate discipline agilist. So I can keep talking about Disciplined Agile. The more I talk, the lesser it's going to be, because there's too much, so much of things, and there's so many things to talk about, correlate with, that you just keep getting deep dive into it. But I'll still touch upon what the Disciplined Agile is all about. So Disciplined Agile is, first of all, it's the next level of your agile methodology of project management. For traditional project managers like the EPC projects or any design projects that you would have done, right? Or any IT project using a traditional life cycle you would have done, all using all these kind of projects that you would have done through the life cycles. For you, this is going to be little more different, because then you wouldn't have dwelled into the agile life cycle at all. But the Disciplined Agile, assume that you have a agile background, okay? And this is something called, now this is a myth though, but I'll bust the myth little later. Assume that you are aware of what agile methodology is for a while. And then this is the top layer of the agile. Whether you are using a Scrum method, whether you are using the Kanban method, whether you are using the DevOps, you are using SAFe as a scaling agile or a scaled agile method, you are using Scrum of Scrum as a scaled agile, teams of team, whether you are using the extreme programming or XP programming method, you are using the RUP, right? Typically those IBM days where you had a rational rows blooming in, unified processes coming from those rational rows days, and agile modeling principles or agile data. There are so many techniques, but one thing that you could see here in the center, you see this is a traditional methodology, right? So all of this are the agile methodologies except this one and this one, which are related to each other. So far till 6th edition of PMBOK, right? In PMBOK you had a new agile concepts, of course, but it doesn't cover all this in detail, of course not. It's a very generic introduction to agile project management. Well, so this is where I wanted your attention to be diverted. Those who already know agile principles and those who are not knowing about the agile project management methodology, guys, welcome. Most welcome. Just don't bother about it. So you can always start from scratch in the world of Disciplined Agile. Having said that, the core Disciplined Agile concept, it's pretty easy for those guys who are already experienced agile professionals or Scrum Masters, as we say, right? So for them, it comes easily. But for the others also, it is not difficult. And I'll tell my experience about that, right? So Disciplined Agile is the toolkit. One, it is not a framework. Please remember, it is a guided toolkit. It believes in guided continuous improvement. It takes your Kanban approach to the next level. It takes the Kanban from Toyota production system to the next level. It's a guided continuous improvement approach. It is not a framework. It is not a methodology. It is not a collection of processes, etc., etc., etc. It is a toolkit which guides you to the project professionals or the enterprise professionals. This is not just for the project professional. This has actually been focused at the entire enterprise level, where the PMBOK of the traditional methods of a project management is focused on the project management level for the project managers typically, or the program managers. Remember this difference at first time, the first difference rather. Second, Disciplined Agile came through a company which is Canada-based company called Disciplined Agile Consortium. This company was formed by two great like-minded gentlemen, again coming from the Agile world, from those IBM days, and based on the, as I said, rational rules and the RUP and Agile modeling principles, they created this entire great organization called Disciplined Agile Consortium. And recently, 2019, this Disciplined Agile Consortium was primarily taken over officially by PMI. So now it's a part of PMI. So if you go to pmi.org, there'll be huge amount of information about this you'll find. In fact, you'll get tired reading it. It is so interesting, believe me. So my first request here to all of you guys, probably after having completing this webinar, first request is today itself, go to the website of pmi.org and dwell into Disciplined Agile. Just Google out Disciplined Agile and it will take you to all sorts of links there. So what is DABOK? Though there is no formal terminology like PMBOK, I just wanted to ensure that you understand the difference between PMBOK and DABOK, right? So I thought, why don't we, coin the term called DABOK, Disciplined Agile Body of Knowledge, from one of the great books which those two authors wrote. In fact, there are two books here actually. The first one, which was, first edition came out of this in 2012. It was Introduction to Disciplined Agile Delivery. And the second one, which immediately, after a few months it came out, was called Choose Your Wow. What is wow? Way of working. I'll come to that. What is that way of working? So Disciplined Agile Delivery Framework, DAD, okay, is primarily people-driven. It's a goal-oriented. As I said, it's a hybrid agile. This one, right? It's basically learning-oriented. It gives you a guidance. As I said, it's a GCI, guided continuous improvement. And the way I look at WOW is it gives you an opportunity to really be flexible. Why? Because your stakeholders' requirements keep changing, and that's where you try to, develop into your agile project management. Now, my friends in a traditional project management might be wondering, how do we take without change requests? We need to do integrated change control, of course, yes. For every change that is not a part of your scope baseline, the scenario here is completely different. And my short session of 30 minutes cannot cover everything. So I'll let you go through all this in detail. And when you look at it, for example, a risk value life cycle, Disciplined Agilists always believe very strongly in identifying the risk earliest in the game and try to mitigate or avoid or transfer, right, or accept the risk earlier in the game. Right? Earlier you identify and mitigate the risks or respond to the risk, better for you in terms of stakeholder value. So the value that you derive out of doing a project, that's going to be important. And that was important for traditional projects also. Fortunately, here everything happens upfront. And when I talk about little more differences, you'll probably come to know what the contrast between the two methods and what are the similarities between these two. So we call this as a DABOK. right? This and the choose your wow book. Values. So most of you would have seen this. If not in your, during your PMP preparation, or those who are not PMP, in your organization, so you would have seen this kind of values, which are very common. Basically, we call these as ethical considerations, or in the world of project management professional paradigm, you call this as professional responsibility and ethics, right? So 4 values. A project manager by profession or a project professional abide by and sign off these 4 values. Responsibility, that means owning all your actions. If you fail, you fail. You are owners, you are owning up. If you succeed, of course you succeed along with the team. The team succeed, no doubt. That's your responsibility. If you goof up, you own it up. Respect, treating the people and all your resources, not only human beings as a resource, but equipment resources as well appropriately. Fairness, no partiality, being absolutely fair in your judgments, which should be fact-based, which has to be fact-based decisions, so that it remove the bias, so-called cognition bias, perception bias, when you try to compare. And the last, honesty. Whenever you make a representation in front of your stakeholders, the management group, management committee, or to your CEO, when you represent this project or do a presentation, you only say the truth. Now, these are values which the project professionals lived so far with. If I literally go to the DA principles, and my friends in Agile world, remember 2001 Agile Manifesto, 4 values, 12 principles, right? We have just moved those from Scrum Alliance, did a great job, of course, but Disciplined Agile moved it to the new parlance or that new level, introducing, changing few aspect of those 4 values, let the base be the same, introducing 1 more value and introducing 5 more principles. So you have 5 values and 17 principles in this. The first one, individuals and interactions over processes and tool, nothing changes. Second one, yes, there is a change. Consumable solutions over comprehensive documentation. You had if you remember, you had a working software in 2001 Agile Manifesto. You know what? After 2001 till now, you didn't have any change in the Agile Manifesto at all. So you all had the standard values in the Agile Manifesto that you as a Scrum professional or a Kanban or a Lean professional, you would have done. But there is a change here. The change of words. Working software consumable solutions over working software. So those two have changed, interchanged. Stakeholder collaboration, right? Rather than customer collaboration over the contract negotiation. Responding to feedback over following a plan. And the last one, which was newly added, is called transparency over false predictability. That means rather than assuming few things, rather than predicting some things, let's have data in place. And let's have the data be transparent across the geography, across your stakeholders, across all the people, including your teams, your customer teams, your stakeholder teams, everybody. And this is where you literally use their information radiators as a tool, or the visual dashboards in the Kanban software, right? That most of you might be doing it. Why do you do information radiator? Just so that everybody, honestly, I don't need to spend time in my documentation and reporting separately. So these are the DA values. So this is a little, let me change this. This is not a DA values, guys. It's a DA principles. My apologies. I didn't change this. So there are 7 principles. I'm not going to go into details of this, guys, right? Because this you can always learn through. In my last sessions, I've already covered twice about this. I'm not going to run through this, of course. The 7, in a very quick note, the core heart is to delight your customers, right? The core of the project management or a PMBOK was the CSAT, if you remember, right? It's customer satisfaction. Delight is absolutely, absolutely preferable. But here the core heart is to delight the customer. Be awesome. Pragmatism. Context counts. Choice is good. Optimize your flow. Enterprise awareness. These are some more principles, right, which you could obviously go through the website. I explain these in detail, so today I'm not going to touch them. Let's talk about the toolkits. Let's compare toolkits. Most of you, those who would have gone through the PMBOK introduction, would be knowing about this. The 5 processes and 10 knowledge areas. That's what the PMBOK has. Integration, scope, time, cost, quality, resources, communication, risk, procurement, stakeholders. Across these 5. That's the whole life cycle of the project management in PMBOK, in a traditional life cycle word. And recently in 6th edition of PMBOK, your iron triangle of CST, cost, scope, time, has been replaced with a talent triangle. And if you look at all the 3 sides, it's actually equilateral triangle. All the 3 sides are equal to each other. This is a real equilateral triangle. 33% weightage to all the 3 factors. A project manager or a professional has to abide by these 3 different what you call paradigms of the project. 1, a technical project management. 2, leadership. And 3, strategic and business management. Why? Of course, leadership goes no choice as a part of interpersonal skills for a PM, soft skills. Technical project management, the pain area was in the past, the project managers were all generic project managers. And the corporate sector, and my experiences in the corporate for over the last 2 decades, was primarily, of course, the sponsors wouldn't appreciate a generic project manager. Would say my project manager should be technically oriented, aligned, and if preferably hands-on technical experience. So this triangle or this paradigm has been formed by the corporate sector of the globe, who employ the project managers as one of the selection or recruitment factor, that technicalities of the project of that particular domain, okay, should be there. So that's given 33% weightage. Second, strategic and business management. Strategic and business management obviously primarily coming through understanding your business cases, understanding your chartering process. It's not just initiation of the project that you restrict yourself with. It's even before what happens to the chartering process. You try to get under this situation. How are the projects been selected from the portfolio and the programs? Why only these projects? Are they going to drive some benefits today in this particular year? Are they worth doing it? Ask those questions to the sponsors and the committee. And the last, leadership, of course, no doubt, interpersonal skills is omnipresent. We need it. Versus the DA structure. You got a old, this is called onion structure. So it starts with a so small number of tools to processes, some practices, some principles, some values, and some mindset overall. So mindset as a whole, DA mindset, we call it as, would consist of this values, principles, practices, tools, and processes. And you can take a deep dive at your will. So DA toolkit, like a PMBOK toolkit, consists of a foundation, just like any foundation in the project, any project, and number of blades. You would see 24 blades to be precise here. This is as per the latest edition of DA. Choose your wow book. This is as per the latest edition of that, which has just came out in 2020, as recent as that. And another benefit for you guys, For those who are PMI members, this 460-page book is absolutely free download. I'll repeat, this Choose Your Wow book is absolutely free download available, just like how your PMBOK was available for the PMI members. That has just recently occurred. And this is a new edition. The first edition, this second edition, first edition of Choose Your Wow at about 600 or 700 odd pages. They've been trimmed to 460 odd pages now. So these are all blades. What are the blades? If you see the blades, these are the process capabilities here, right? That you might have a practices, you might have some different functional areas. As you see here in the foundation, in this toolkit, you've got a principles which we spoke about. Those 7 principles. Promises. We promise something as a part of the DA to your stakeholders. Some guidelines. The life cycles. So there are 7 different life cycles primarily, right? Here it's been just shown Agile and Lean, 2 primary life cycle as a foundation. And the serial that you see, this is part of your traditional. So the second starking difference, friends, the PMBOK, the entire traditional life cycle is nothing but a foundation here, which means busting the myth, is PMBOK and DA really different? Then probably I would rather call it as for my opinion, the DA sits on top of PMBOK. It allows you to customize your approach the way the team is comfortable, rather than getting into prescriptive methods of you should do only this, you should do only sequential approach, you should not use parallel approach, or you should not use the hybrid approach of traditional and adaptive both, or your predictive and adaptive. No prescription given by the companies and the rules book and by whoever. It's left to the team to choose their way of working. That's the beauty of this. Then there are some roles, some teams, and of course, as I said, I keep saying way of working, because this is where the team becomes flexible to choose your approach. That doesn't mean that if you're using a Scrum methodology or you are using Kanban, you all of a sudden change. No, you still use it, but for a certain principles on top of it. So DA is not going to replace anything, not going to replace PMBOK, not going to replace your Scrum, not going to replace your Agile, Lean, anything. It's going to sit on top of it as a guided principles. Okay, so these are some of the blades that you could probably take a deep dive. Now, what I'll do is I'll just give you a small analogy of this. Give me 5 minutes more on this. Let's assume, okay, you're driving a particular project in the Agile framework, for example. You're driving through a Scrum methods. You have a teams available. They're trying to deliver a solution to your stakeholders based on the changing stakeholder requirements. You have a product backlog, and you have a prioritization on the backlog, right? Then you have a sprint backlog, so on and so forth. Okay, I will not get into that. Think about this: is a racing car, right? Think about this. You have a your project here is nothing but like a racing car on the ground. It need a platform. So this also need a platform. Right? You're probably using whatever methodologies that you have. However, if you put this traditional engine, okay, in the racing car, this is a very traditional of those 1970s of the Ford motor. The racing car will not work. This is pretty heavy. What we have to do? You have to customize the engine for it. You'll have to have engine which is much faster. This is exactly this second layer comes of DevOps. DevOps meaning development operations team working together. Unless your racing car is being supported by the right kind of operations within it, and with the right kind of a people, right kind of a tool set, right kind of a technology, your racing car will not work, which means you need the right tool sets. You need the right people to fit in it. You need to right people to do our testing of it. And at the end of the day, apart from the final technologies, you need a platform to at least perform, right? You need a ground. And when you have a ground and when you race for racing car, you need this kind of a sponsors. Have fun. That's exactly where this enterprise level comes into play. Your typical agile methods, right, would generally not consider this particular layer. In fact, it's all focused on DAD layer, delivery, the best case scenario at DevOps level. But this level and this level, crossing these barriers, going to this level, right, and optimizing the whole at the enterprise level is the game here in Disciplined Agile. So this is how it compares with your traditional approach, and traditional approach as well go to enterprise level, isn't it? You have a stakeholders identified across, risk management in both, by the way. There's not too much of a difference. Having said that, in Disciplined Agile, well, you really believe in identifying and mitigating risk as early as possible, so that we have a risk value life cycle. Right? So thought I'll probably explain you. This is your PMBOK life cycle. Will not go into much detail about it because I think we spoke about this. There are various life cycles within the Disciplined Agile, friends. Agile life cycle, lean life cycle. You have a continuous delivery agile, you have a continuous delivery lean. For example, if you are doing let's say 3 months of a software development project, you are building an inventory management solution for a company, or you are doing a warehouse management solution, you are building a CRM product for a company, okay, and you are using the typical Scrum method as a part of agile life cycle, right? You might have a 2 weeks period of each iteration, okay, within your or a sprint within your entire Scrum methodology. And after 2 weeks, you try to produce a deliverable and see if that deliverable is kind of accepted by the customers or not. If not, it go back again, the improvement areas go back again to product backlog, and you try to execute that, right? This is how you do in Agile. As well as a lean comes where you have fast changing requirement from the stakeholders. You need more visualization of the work. The lean is based on that so-called Toyota principle of eliminate the waste, right? So 7 principles of a lean, of course, not the right time to talk about them. So 7 principles of lean, you cover up in this lean method. And then lean methodology is fast moving. An example of this is your ticketing system, right? For example, in a ticketing system, what happens? You might have a ticket which some tickets might be required to be resolved daily. Some tickets might be required to resolve on the weekly time. So in 2 weeks, of course, I can't use this agile life cycle because I can't wait for 2 weeks to produce as a stakeholder to see the deliverable. So what I do is I at least have a maximum 1 week life cycle and then go accordingly. If I need daily, okay, I might do a continuous lean. Okay, and if I have a frequent changing requirements on the project side to be delivered, I do continuous agile. And if I've got few new things, new innovation to be strike at, a new kind of a projects which have to be done in this or new experiments which need to be done, then you kind of use this exploratory to produce something called minimal business increment, or okay, and through something called minimum viable proposition to my stakeholders. If the outcome of the exploratory life cycle is successful, if that experiment is successful, I will put this outcome as one of these 4 life cycles and move on as an input to them. If it fails, then I have a learnings, and I again try and try and try. This is, as I said, DA is a continuous guided improvement effort. always. So my final 2 slides, combining the both. One, stakeholder management. Even with the DA, my friends, your stakeholder methodology do not change much than your stakeholder management knowledge area in PMBOK. It use the same waterfall method or a traditional or predictive method to identify the stakeholders and engage them in that game. Risk management, as I said, you have a 5 strategies in negative risk response, 5 in positive, correct? Same way here as well in the agile or disciplined agile, you got this kind of a same kind of a methodology of risk response. Okay, combining them. Second, hybrid project requirements. So in the agile, typical agile framework, you've got user stories, whereas in a typical project traditional life cycle of following a PMBOK, you got end user requirements, right? Nothing different. As long as you have the definite requirement coming through, you might be able to easily build specifications on your top of requirement. But the DF differs here, and it allows very uncertain requirements. It allows you to experiment through that 1 week period of that sprint. It allows you to do that. It allows you to select your way of working. It allows you to put up your failures back into the game again and success again and again. It's the primary talk. If you fail, higher you fail, better you success. But DSA is, it's good to be successful than having a maximum number of failures. Having learned from 1 2 failure is good one, but use your guided continuous improvement. Use this framework to continuously learn. This concept is probably we don't have in a PMBOK. Third, schedule development. The schedule development technique you got in a PMBOK, you got critical chain, critical path methods, etc., resource labeling, and whatnot, right? Here in the disciplined agile work, all the agile approaches, you have got time box methodology, whereby your scope keeps changing, and time and cost remain fixed. Whereas in the traditional method, what you have is your scope remain fixed, and your time and cost keep changing. Right? That's how it is. Apply visual management. Millennials are different. Millennials always prefer. So I always keep asking myself a question, and probably I'll come back to the this to the last at end of my presentation. What question I'm going to think about? Cost management. You use the earned value management there also and here also. Both are similar, so you can really combine them together for both the kind of benefits. Classic planning process. Well, a detailed planning in a PMBOK, okay, you might not need so detailed here. You need a minimal planning. Also, planning done at the last moment. Planning done at the last moment when you have a final requirement identified, you do the planning rather than keep doing and the requirements change, unlike your traditional life. Communication management, informal communications, both same. In both the scenario, you need a communication. The good part here in the discipline agile is the communication perspective. You have this so-called agile tools which you have already available, like visual dashboard, information radiator tools, through which all the stakeholders will be kept informed through this kind of a tools. And that's the last slide of mine before I open up the further questions. A case study of mine. I did a project which is $30 million, not that big project. This was the software project. Primarily, the project was all about Salesforce implementation and customization system. We typically used Scrum method in the past. Typically used. Now, what happened? Scrum was a predictive approach. Prescriptive approach. See, organizations you know worldwide for all this kind of a scale of a project, they used to use Scrum. So by default, our team, okay, let's go Scrum. Fine. So what happened? I being a PMP certified, of course. And this Agile project was so-called new for me, and the methodologies also were, Scrum methodology were pretty new for me. And I was given this opportunity to own the project as a project, as a product owner rather, because I used to understand the business pretty well. But so of course we had a nice, charter created of, including a business case. We had our human resource plan in terms of what kind of resources might be required, what methods and tools that we might use, right? Selection of a program manager and team, all through my own traditional method. See the software, typical waterfall life cycle approach of a PMP certified guy like me. Well, it's done. What happened during the engagement of the resources? It took a long time because there was a sequence of steps, series of steps. Not that I didn't know how to make it parallel, how to crash or fast track, but it was getting too much in terms of timelines. So what we did, we tried to introduce a new terminology there called, let's have the team select team. My core team of 5 people, which are already there. In fact, I was supposed to build a team of 130 people. Actually, it was 100 and just almost 100 people team. And I had only a team of 5 core members across 5 areas. Well, this is a global project and supported in 8 countries, right? So you might be wondering, why didn't I do a safe? Why did I go Scrum? As I said, it's a prescriptive method. The 5-member team was struggling to build. What we did, we empowered them enough. No governance structure, only very top level monitoring from me, helping hand, enable them, trust them. These are all the values and principles in your Disciplined Agile. Trust them, give them the authority. Pick up your guys, pick up your teams, and let's run. As a product owner, my responsibility was to have a Scrum Master in place. So we had a Scrum Master in place. And from that CSM guy, I learned a lot, being a PMP certified. We started the identification of our right stakeholders, same approach as mine, the traditional approach, same communication management plan, who communicates with whom, what based on the stakeholder communication requirements, analysis, etc. Went with that. Though took a long time initially, had a lot of lessons learned. Requirements, of course, but I had a classic challenge in requirement gathering because this was a project where the requirements were not frozen. They're dynamically kind of changing requirements, and I was puzzled. How do I freeze this? How do I baseline my scope? I wasn't, and then come this so-called hybrid method. Say, don't worry, requirements remain requirements. The way you treat the requirements as a product owner, okay, you try to engage your stakeholders, create a backlog of your requirements, try to prioritize based on value, which requirement having the highest value to your stakeholder. Identify first of key stakeholders, freeze the requirements, deliver it. You can't build the whole room in a day, right? No, you can't. So build requirement by requirement in a prioritized manner. Have a time box of 1 month. Those days used to be a 4 weeks time box. Well, don't. So in a traditional framework, if you would have seen, you have a iterative life cycle, correct? So similarly, I also believe in iteration, and thanks to the great Agile world, I learned what is incremental and iterative, both in terms of the phase approach. I say 1 month. I'll only do this. Will not bother about anything else. And this hybrid methodology went successful. The first time it failed, of course, we went behind schedule, etc. But second time we learned a lot on this, and that's where I thought that why don't I tell you guys today that how do you actually combine this both? The traditional methodology, this last 5 minutes for you to have a questions, guys. the last 2 points here, procurement planning and finance management. These are all traditional, all traditional. What we did is we made them very clear that our team is going to do agile methods, and I personally, product owner, I'll be an interface between you finance guys, you procurement team. I'll interact with you in a traditional manner. But in that bargain, what happened? Those traditional folks who used to do a traditional procurement meaning, you'll have a quotes from different people. Let's say I need a dual screen 21-inch on my table, which is typically required for the developers and testers. So you have a typical process, right? You invite the codes, analysis of the code, you have a go to finance, take a approval on a budget code and whatnot. We did that. I did that for them. My team was doing agile. The stakeholders were doing all those traditional. I was interface. The game was they learned through me what the agile method are. Where our team also did understand their challenges. And when this amalgamation happened, this hybrid would go successful. With that, I'll stop, guys. Thanks. Open up for questions. So feel free to put your questions, guys, on the chat box. Of course, there are some more slides, but now I don't think so I'll have a time for doing that. So feel free to have your questions here. Let me see if you have a questions. So Giri, thanks for asking. Recording material, there is a huge amount of material which is available, Giri, on the on the pmi.org website. Okay, so if you really look at it, you will get it. Having said that, in this section has been recorded, but rather than that, I think I probably would urge you to look at a pmi.org website. That's what my first request today, Giri, right? That you look at your PMI.org website today itself, because at Disciplined Agile Delivery, as a part of Disciplined Agile Consortium, it's been all integrated here. Any more questions, guys? Something really different, something really interesting for those who are traditional project managers like me in the past. And then of course I had to do so last almost like 5+ years I'm doing Agile project management as well. My request is go through a pmi.org website, guys, if you don't have any questions, and feel free to get in touch with me again, once again, and I'll come back again with another kind of a webinar around this. This is my third webinar on the Disciplined Agile, and I'll keep talking about being a true Disciplined Agile Agilist, and of course a true project management professional in a traditional manner as well. So if there are no questions, guys, then thank you so much. I know for sure, look at the website and try to understand more about Disciplined Agile, and you'll understand how these traditional methods are so-called at the foundation level on which Disciplined Agile has been built. Thank you so much, guys, and see you till next time. Have a great day and a great week ahead.